Hi folks, welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Kat, this is Onyx. I'm a registered and licensed dietitian nutritionist and online nutrition coach. I specialize in sports nutrition, gut health, and prenatal nutrition. And today's video, I am really excited about it. We chat with one of my friends and colleagues, Sam Karoll, about this new kind of weight loss program, plan, contraption. You want to go? Yeah, you don't like it. So we actually saw a lot of this within our social media feeds this past week, and so we just wanted to chat about it. We're talking about our initial reactions, the articles that spoke about it, the actual study, and a personal email response that Sam actually got from the lead researcher. That's it. Let's go. Sam, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited, like the whole channel in general. I am so excited about talking about this topic because it has been something that I've seen in most of the groups that I'm in, nutrition coach groups and dietitian groups. Everybody's talking about this. I've seen it on my timeline so many times. Before we get into that though, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do?
So I'm Sam Karoll. I'm the founder and owner of Explore Nutrition. We're a nutrition coaching service that works with both nutrition coaches and registered dietitians together to service a wide variety of clients. Before I opened Explore, that was actually kind of a span out project of the CrossFit affiliate and sports performance center that I used to run for about 7 years. And then occasionally when I get the lucky opportunity, I also help with like hospitals and medical groups and kind of advising their wellness initiatives.
That's
So,
awesome. And you still have the clock in the background.
I do.
CrossFit style clock.
Away, right there. Yep. Nope, there.
Jumping into this article, how did you first see it? Where did you see it?
I don't remember where I first saw it. I think somebody had like a screenshot of just like the article title with a picture of the device in it. And at first I thought that it was initially going to be this thing where I was like, all right, like we found a new way to wire people's jaws shut for like reconstructive surgery. And when I actually clicked on it and realized that dietary guideline, I was like, oh God.
Yes. So I saw it in a group, kind of same kind of way. And it looked like a joke. It looked like something that would be from The Onion.
Yep.
And I just I didn't give it much thought. I just kind of scrolled past it, but then I kept seeing it pop up again and again. And then you messaged and I was like, oh, everybody's talking about this. And so I decided to look into it further. So yeah.
It's ridiculous. It was one of those things that kind of started off like really slow and then it started popping up in all the groups and you started seeing it on like Instagram stories. And
yeah.
It was good though to at least see that it was pretty much a resounding like, what is this? Like, how is this a thing?
Yeah. And I'm wondering if that was mostly just in our feeds because of who we are connected to for the most part, or if it's like other people are seeing this too. You know, it might just be because of who we're friends with.
I like to think that it's probably just like as a general whole, only because some of the groups where you have some very controversial conversations going on, I don't think I saw a single person be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. We should definitely magnetically lock people's jaws.
But all of those groups were of coaches though, right?
Yes.
So
yeah. True. I don't know. It'd be interesting to ask or reach out to people that might target and be like, hey, think about getting your jaw wired shut. And then that would probably open up a completely different conversation in the end.
Yeah. And apparently, I mean, some people think it's a good idea because people were part of the study that we'll talk about. And then you actually sent a letter to the researcher and they even said that people are excited about it. So yeah. So I wanted to talk about the actual article before we hop into what our thoughts are more in depth, and then also what the actual study says. So something that we see often to the audience, a lot of times what we see in the nutrition field, and I'm sure it happens in every single other field, professional field, is that you'll have this kind of article, this kind of journal article, this study, and a news publication will grab it and take it kind of out of context and just kind of put whatever they can to make it clickable.
Right.
And so we're just going to talk about the article first and then actually talk about what the study says. So, brief overview. The Dental Slim diet control, developed by researchers at New Zealand's University of Otago, I think I'm saying that correctly, is a magnetic contraption fitted to the patient's upper and lower back teeth that uses locking bolts to prevent them from properly opening their mouths and in turn eating solid foods. It allows the wearers to open their mouths only about 2 millimeters, restricting them to a liquid diet, but it also allows for free speech and doesn't restrict their breathing. And so the participants in the trial lost an average of 6.36 kilograms, which is about 14 pounds, in 2 weeks. And according to them, they were motivated to continue with their weight loss journey. What was also interesting with the article, the professor, he said that the fact is, Professor Brunton said there is no adverse consequences with this device. And to further clarify, the intention of this device is not intended as a quick or long-term weight loss tool. Rather, it's aimed to assist people who need to undergo surgery and who cannot have the surgery until they have lost weight. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, they can have the magnets disengaged and the device removed, and they can then have a period with less restricted eating and go back into that treatment. And so I wanted to talk about that before we give our thoughts on that, because that still doesn't make it any better. And the paper ended by basically saying occasionally the participants had discomfort and felt that their life in general was less satisfying, but that overall the participants tolerated the device for a 2-week period with satisfactory weight loss. So, Sam, initial thoughts?
I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind, like especially when you started talking about how it's basically wiring somebody's jaw shut for the intent of a weight loss surgery. And in a lot of cases, people who fit into a morbidly obese category, if they want to go to get bariatric surgery, they're usually doctors want to see that they are losing a certain amount of weight ahead of time to actually qualify for the surgery itself. And when we go into those surgeries, like you as a dietitian, especially, you know that if someone has that surgery and they get done and they have no established form of habit change, or at least some kind of improved decision-making prior to that surgery, they're probably going to go back to the same things that they were doing. And eventually that surgery is not going to be as successful. Right. And when you get into something like magnetically shutting your jaw so you can't eat even if you wanted to, it's forceful restriction that, I mean, you couldn't change habits if you wanted to because you can't. And that's just setting somebody up for future failure.
Absolutely. I'm just wondering how it would be to have, because 2 millimeters, right?
Right. I tried to think about that when I was reading the article originally and like what it would feel like to open my mouth up by 2 millimeters. And I like looked at a ruler and I'm like, yeah.
No.
You can barely get a straw in.
Right. And so I wonder if they were in the actual article, did they talk about what the contents of their liquid diet was?
I don't think they really talked about it in the article.
I didn't see that either.
Get to the study, I don't think that they really talked about it that much in the study either.
No. Which does not surprise me. As I said before, I thought this was an Onion article. I know in the long time ago, and this, this is not a new idea. People have had this idea. It was kind of even the preface of, or the storyline of that one show on, what was it, Netflix, that with Debbie Ryan, I think, where she had her jaw shut and then she came back to school the next year, like, with a much different weight, much lower. I think that's what it was about. It got canceled. Yeah, right. So it's not kind of a new idea, but it's just interesting to have this idea, 2021, to have an idea and this be it, right? So people, of course, were jumping on it to join, and we'll talk about how many people they had actually in the study, but the fact that people thought that this was a good idea, and there's no shame around that. As I mentioned when you posted it, I think I commented about how a lot of times people will try to do these kind of extreme weight control plans because of traumas in their life, like rejection in some ways, marginalization, bullying in that larger body. And so it's 100% understandable why they would see this and be like, yes, I want to do that. But ultimately, I feel like it's the responsibility of the person, the provider, to do no harm. And this is something that I see can do a lot of harm overall.
Yeah, I think that this device that you would be putting in actually, it increases the probability of doing a lot more harm and causing issues that are going to last months or years after you discontinue its use, rather than being this beneficial thing. And the benefit is really only this like temporary thing while your mouth is basically shut closed. And once you can open it again, it's like, oh yeah, food's cool. Like I don't have to drink things through a straw for the rest of my life. And
right.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, no behavior change at all with this, which that's what we know. That's the only thing that works. So moving into what the actual study says, and you did something that I haven't seen anybody do, which is why I wanted to get you on here and talk about this, because you actually looked at the study. So you didn't just do that, but then you also sent a letter to the researcher.
I did. Paul Brunton, he's the head of the, I don't know if it's like the dental program or the actual science department of the university that published the study originally. Mm-hmm. So after reading through the study and doing a little bit of a research on jaw wiring, which is what they're trying to fix, it became really apparent that the idea was even worse. It's just making a bad idea slightly less bad, maybe. So it was like, all right, I kind of feel like messaging this guy. So I had a little bit of time and I sat down and dropped him a letter.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about how you felt reading the actual article, the actual study?
So one of the interesting things that stuck out right away when it came to reading the study versus reading the press release that the university put out that a lot of these articles were citing was that the press release, in a typical PR fashion, kind of twisted the way things actually were to sound like this really awesome, beneficial product, how they're talking
for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. How they're talking about how, awesome, the participants in the study, which were, I think, 7 people in total. Yep. So 7 people, which is a very, very small sample size by any means, lost those up about 14 pounds. And this encouraged people to continue to lose weight. But in the end, 100% of the participants showed regained weight within 2 weeks of the study's completion. And when you start digging into jaw wiring procedures, which started back in, I think it was 1970s as this extreme way for losing weight, 100% for the most part of those studies also showed that everyone who had their jaw wired shut regained the weight that they had lost. And that goes back to the fact that, no habits were changed, no decision-making skills were worked on, emotional intelligence didn't have to get factored in. It was just this, okay, if we force someone not to eat, then they have to lose weight because we're putting them in a calorie restriction. But the second this person can open their mouth again, what's to stop them from eating cake and going to a buffet or enjoying food like a normal human would?
Yeah. So do you feel comfortable reading the email?
All right, so this is the email that was sent from me to Professor Paul Brunton. Writing to you out of the genuine concern as to the recent research conducted and released in regards to your Dental Slim Diet Control, or DSDC device for a dental-based weight loss treatment. I found it particularly interesting that in the press release, which was linked by your school, the University of Otago, you made the following statement. Overall, people felt better about themselves, they had more confidence, and they were committed to their weight loss journey. Despite this claim, however, it appears that your own research article that was published in the British Dental Journal on June 25th of 2021, your results clearly state the following in regards to participant feedback. Participants had trouble pronouncing some words and felt tense and embarrassed only occasionally. However, participants indicated that they occasionally had discomfort and felt that life in general was less satisfying. It also appears that your study suggests In quotes, participants were happy with the outcome and were motivated to lose more weight, end quote. Despite it being noted in figure 2 of your study that 100% of your participants noted they had begun to regain weight 2 weeks after treatment. This actually falls in line with most clinical data that, in regards to the jaw wiring procedures cited in the study, also found that close to 100% of all jaw wiring recipients regained weight after treatment. Trials in jaw wiring, much like the trial your team utilized, were all highly limited in participant totals. This greatly reduces the viability of potentially positive clinical data. The likelihood of a registered dietitian or other nutrition professionals, not to mention psychologists, therapists, or those in psychiatry who work with patients combating obesity and/or eating disorders suggesting such a treatment is slim. The slim likelihood is also why, in many cases, this study and the DSDC itself have been poorly received and generally hyper-criticized by those who are from the various professions listed. Utilizing jaw wiring or your DSDC continues to show regained weight and post-trial follow-up, and as a result is a generally failed treatment to obesity as it fails to truly establish any form of healthy habitual behavior around food, fails to provide education and a new understanding of food itself, fails to encourage intuitive eating behavioral patterns proven to work long-term, fails to increase a user's emotional, situation, and social intelligence with food, and encourages harsh, unreasonable abstinence and restriction from food shown to drastically increase the likelihood of disordered eating behaviors. Many of these points are well studied and established precursors that lead to a misguided, abused, and damaging relationship with not only an individual's nutrition, but themselves as well. It also appears in your study that your team suggests, in quotes, if the patient regains weight, they can have the device refitted, end quotes. Per the results of your own study and every study thus far, it has been made clear that the weight gain post-treatment is inevitable. Are our patients then expected to continually and endlessly have their jaw repeatedly shut? See above bullet points for why this is a vehemently bad idea. In the words of the DSDC study itself, participants tolerated the treatment for an overall and reported decrease in the quality of their lives. Ironically, your study even refers to binge eating disorders in your 4th to last paragraph, a disordered eating pattern that your DSDC device strongly encourages. While I respect the team behind the DSDC's development in an attempt to modernize an already controversial obesity treatment, as medical advancement is something I always encourage, I cannot discourage the use of such a device on actual patients enough. I urge you to strongly reconsider the use of such a medical procedure and device, as well as expressly encourage you to speak to actual professionals in the nutrition or weight loss industry you seek to address. More than one of them would be happy to speak with you on the matter at hand.
Whew. That was a lot. That was really good though. I loved how you were able to, or loved that you talked about, like, as a result, this treatment and the failed treatment at that your study actually shows, like, this is kind of why, because it fails to truly establish any form of healthy habitual behavior around food and all of those bullet points. I think that really, like, summarizes everything that is wrong and everything that we have a concern about with this specific program. Have you seen any positives? Because I was looking even on Twitter and it felt like most people were against it, but I know some people were for it. They had to be for it. Have you seen anybody?
I haven't seen anyone genuinely come out and say, hey, this is a really good idea. Like, we should do this and wire people's jaws shut and it's going to work and people are going to lose weight.
Okay, so you got a response.
Yep,
not
I did.
too long after. Very PR, public relations friendly, kind of cut and paste, sound like, but you want to share that?
Yes. So Professor Paul Brunton, who is the pro vice chancellor of the Division of Health Sciences at the University of Otago, since I can actually see his email signature now. Mm-hmm. He wrote back, and it was, like you said, it was a very PR friendly, like, you know, just kind of scratching the surface of what he's probably copy and pasted in some fashion with minor changes to what I assume is more than one email. But he said, "Dear Sam, thank you for contacting us. Dental Slim Diet Control, developed by Otago and the UK researchers, including dentists and doctors, is a safe and effective tool for weight loss. Researchers anticipate its primary use will be for patients who need to lose weight quickly so they can safely have a general anesthetic. Treatment at an individual level for those wishing to lose weight primarily involves support for the lifestyle changes, which are essential for healthy weight maintenance. For some people, more radical treatments such as bariatric surgery may be necessary. This device is an additional option for people needing to lose weight. This is a decision that a person would be able to make for themselves in consultation with medical professionals. During the 2-week study period, the participants received dental, dietetic, and medical supervision. This information is in our publication, which is freely available. He then goes on to link the study that I ironically had already linked to him. While this announcement has received some negative feedback, we have also received correspondence from people wanting to buy the device or be part of the next clinical trial, and medical professionals commending the device and offering support in future trials. We acknowledge this won't be for everyone, just like medication and surgery isn't for everyone. But for those who do want to go down this path, it is a safe option. End email.
I want to know who the medical professionals are that are commending the device and offering support in future trial. What is that support? Like support as don't do it or support in continuing it?
And that's kind of one of the interesting things is, every once in a while, and no offense to anyone that watches this in the medical profession, but we talk about how medical professionals don't really receive much of an education on nutrition.
Right.
Like, I know for a fact that my primary care used to tell their patients that they couldn't eat fruit because fruit would make them obese.
No.
And you're taking someone who deals with Gen Pop in health, and now you're having people in dental medicine talk to people about nutritional advice and weight loss and all this other stuff. And from what I can tell, most of the people that participated in the research from the physician side, most of those people are in dental and orthodontics. So I'm curious if most of the people that he gets, like, oh, hey, we would do this, are those people who financially benefit from selling a device that's likely not very cheap. And because the results will eventually come back and, retract themselves, they get to go in ahead and do it again. So it's like endless cycle of, I don't know, feed me, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a note that I just pulled up that I had saved. So a report by the National Research Council found that physicians receive an average of 21 to 23 contact classroom hours of nutrition education throughout their entire training, and most schools provide less. And just as a side note, doctors are amazing at what they do, but that's just it. Amazing at what they do, what they are specifically trained to do. There's a reason why registered dietitians are part of the medical care team, why they're in hospitals, why the doctors will refer their clients and patients over to registered dietitians, even in outside and private practice facilities. And just an example quickly, whenever I was working as a clinical dietitian in a teaching hospital, we had the students, the med students, they were residents, and they would actually come to us to learn more about like tube feeds and the different kind of diet orders that we would do and the different supplements. So if that kind of says anything, some doctors can do additional training in nutrition, but just because somebody is a medical doctor doesn't mean that they have any kind of specialization or anything in nutrition. And like you said, they might say don't eat sugar or don't eat fruit because it has sugar in it or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's kind of ironic in a way too, because you think about medicine, and medicine is very much segregated out to be this specialist environment where you have general practitioners, orthodontics, orthopedists, endos, all that other kind of stuff. And then it's like, okay, I have this MD or this DO. Yeah, I could talk about food with people because I'm a doctor, when in reality, just based on those hours, it's pretty much equivalent to a high school health class in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah. And some of the feedback that I get from patients or clients, something that their doctor said, it's really like, oh, yeah, stay in scope of practice. Absolutely. Number one thing. So I thought it was really interesting that this professor mentioned that it was safe 3 times. Said, so it's a safe and effective tool for weight loss. And we know based on the study that he linked,
Right.
Not effective long term. And that's another thing too. When something is effective, short term, like a plan, a diet or anything, it doesn't matter if it's effective in 2 weeks or like that short term.
Right.
It's gonna come back. And then he talked about it being safe later. And then also for those who do want to go down this path, it is a safe option. Like if you have to say it's safe so many times, like
You have to keep reiterating the thing that someone's trying to tell you is wrong, and there's a decent chance that you feel like you have to be in a defensive position because you know that something's a little
yes. And then he said that it's received some negative reactions, but people still want to try it out. Like, okay.
some.
Yeah, some people, like how many people, first off, but even, if people do want to try it out, that's not their specialty. Like, of course, people are gonna, maybe people are gonna want to try it out because that seems like the best option. And maybe they've their whole life dieted their way up to where they're at, and they're just open to anything at this point, which happens a lot. But does that mean that like that is okay? No.
So like when I was thinking about it, and I think I kind of told you and a few other dietitians this, is when I was looking at that study and you see that everything is like regained, and the type of demographic that is likely to seek that out is probably the person who's borderlining the extreme of what they would do to change themselves or where they are or how they feel that they're perceived by their peers. And those people are probably walking a very thin line of having disordered eating or disordered behaviors to themselves as is. And this is something that's going to make that situation potentially even worse. So it's like, okay, I could pay, I don't know how much this device would cost because it wasn't disclosed in anything. Say $5,000 to go have your jaw wired shut. So someone pays $5,000 for this procedure to regain everything. So the $5,000 is basically lost. And then you might have another year or two of therapy after that because you went so far that you felt like you couldn't open your mouth to make yourself healthier. And that thought alone to me seems very, very unhealthy in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Weight cycling. So losing X amount, gaining X plus more, that puts a lot of stress on the body. So not healthy.
He actually, in their study, I'm not exactly sure where it was near the end, but they talk about how when the patient regains weight or if things don't work, then they can just go back in and re-engage the magnets.
Yes.
For somebody's jaw to be shut again. So it's like, okay, so we know with literally 100% certainty that our patients are going to regain weight because the procedure doesn't work. So what do? We can just go back in and keep shutting it on and off. So like,
keep them in there just in case. Keep them in there for later because they're
like, how long are you gonna keep doing this? Like, you're gonna cycle this person on and off for months, years? Like, how long is this person gonna have to drink food through a straw and just continue to damage their own behavior, their own concept of what food and nutrition and self are?
And I mean, even from a digestive health focused approach, there is a time and place where people do need to get and receive all of their nutrition via formula. And, we work with people in that way. But if they can tolerate some more solids, that's something that we always recommend. We always want to promote that kind of use of the digestive system we want to give, like if we don't need to give elemental nutrition, give the individual glucose molecules or amino acids, we want to be able to give them those longer chains so that their digestive system can do what they can do. And so just from that kind of perspective, having that recommendation of liquid diet when they don't need to have that can potentially cause some issues down the line with their digestive system, which is not something that we want to mess around with.
No,
it takes a while to get that under control.
Gut microbiomes are tricky little suckers.
Yeah, absolutely.
anytime you take out something from someone's diet for a long period of time, then you reintroduce it, your stomach is like, whoa, what is this weird substance you're putting back into my body? And
Right.
I mean, you see that with people with whole foods. They might cut out dairy for a long time. They might go keto and cut out carbs and gluten for a long time when they don't need to. And then they reintroduce it and they're like, hey, my digestion is terrible. It's like, well, yeah, like your stomach hasn't had to deal with these types of things for ages. It's not that the food is bad. It's that you took your body out of the habit of needing to do something it was designed to do.
Mm-hmm. That's another point. I wonder how their bowel movements were.
That's a good question. I guess it would depend on what they were drinking.
Right. Which is another important question of what they were recommended. It said dietetic services were part of the process, but I wonder what they were actually consuming. If it was like a tube feed, if it was like shakes.
And that's the other thing too, is like, we know that in the end, calories, they factor into weight loss or weight gain.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being realistic, you could wire my jaw shut and I could drink milkshakes for days and probably gain weight with my jaw wired shut.
Right.
And you're going to have people who are like, I don't really want to drink liquid spinach and apples and protein for ages. Like, I want a milkshake, and they're going to go to a milkshake, or they're going to figure out ways to get in calorie dense, rich foods. Yes. And not just rely on, the juice bar that you might have around the corner.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And as we know with liquid intake, it's hard to really use or to feel those hunger and fullness cues, or those fullness cues in particular. Yep. So, yeah.
But it goes by, like you drink a liquid shake of apples and kale and celery or whatever you have, it goes by really quick and you feel hungry fast. Mm-hmm. So in a way, that itself can lend to like the binge behavior that I brought up to that professor, because when they get done, not only are they restricted, their hunger cues are just absolutely sabotaged. They're used to getting hungry quickly, and they're gonna reach for food more often. And long term, that could actually make the situation worse than better.
Mm-hmm. Man, well,
it's a mess.
I just wanted to chat with someone who's kind of at my same level of frustration with this, and even more to go out and email the professor, the researcher and lead in this. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on and just chatting.
Always happy to come on and talk to other people in the industry and friends and colleagues and stuff like that. It's always a good time to talk to like-minded people about food and nutrition and people.
Yeah, and crazy and wild diet programs, plans, contraptions.
It's definitely up there with the wildest that I've seen. It's a top 3 for sure.
In 2021. Did you have any last thoughts, final thoughts or anything?
I think that for anyone that watches this, if you're someone who even leans towards the possibility of thinking that this is a solution that you need, reach out to somebody like Kat or someone like us or another professional that doesn't feel that you need this. Have an honest conversation with one of us. Really take the opportunity to try to do things in a different way, and let's see if we can help, instead of trying to, force yourself to not be able to talk right for weeks on end.
Right. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, what is the best way of doing that?
They can either search my name on any social media. I'm Sam Karoll, Karoll, the only one on the planet, so I'm very easy to track down. Or they can go to our website at explorenutrition.com, and that's XPLORE.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, be sure to check out Sam's information. It's all linked down below. I want to know what your thoughts are about this kind of plan, this contraption. Is this something that you would ever consider trying? Do you want this to just disappear like we do? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't subscribed, I would greatly appreciate it, only if you really want to though. And remember, you can get and stay healthy without subscribing to diet culture. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.